Hi everyone, it is time for our weekly overview, and by and large, it's nice to be able to talk about a week where there is a fair amount of harmonious and relatively relaxed energy. There is one thing, I'm not going to say that today has been relaxed for myself or the other people that I've talked to, but we'll come to that in a second. This covers the time period. I'm gonna start it yet. I mean, today's Monday, the 8th of July. I'll start it yesterday on the 7th of July, and let's say we take it to the 15th. It's worth it to take it to the 15th for a couple of reasons, but most of all for the fact that we've got Mars conjuncting Uranus in Taurus on the 15th of July. So let's use that as a marker. If I wait too late, like for next weekend, to do that, it'll be too close to the transit. So let's just talk through everything. First and foremost, the new moon in Cancer video is out. Sorry if you hear an ambient hum or sounds just air conditioning. The new moon in Cancer video was put out about 2 or 3 days ago, I think a day or two before the Cancer new moon, so July 3rd or 4th. So if you haven't looked at that, do take a look at it. I think there is some important and useful information there. We are headed to the first quarter moon at the end of this week. And of course, we are headed towards a full moon on the 21st of July, the second full moon in Capricorn. So I expect that this week, actually, even more than I would expect that pretty shortly, you know, we're likely to find ourselves productive in a relatively balanced way this week. Next week, as we head towards the full moon, we might get busy or busier, and the energy might become a little bit more chaotic. So certainly enjoy that productivity, and please do take advantage of this new moon in Cancer and the full moon on the 21st. It's a very vital new moon trining Saturn. Is, you know, we wait for new moons like this to some extent. I'm not saying that there isn't an air of threat in the air, but there's the real possibility to make progress in a way, both by taking care of, I would say it's like readiness. The progress we make, of course, is towards opportunities that come to us and that are out there, but they're also, it's progress towards opportunities, and it's progress by virtue of taking care of what needs to be cleaned up and sorted out where we are, so that by the time September, October, November come around, we're really ready to be in movement. Whatever I just said, if you want that expanded on, if you want the new moon in Cancer energy to be expanded on, and why I think July really is a month of action and time to make as much progress as you can, take a look at that new moon and it will be helpful. Remember, during August, we're going to hit that Mercury retrograde, and it'll be a necessary check and balance, but it won't be the kind of forward movement that we get a chance to do and experience in July. Okay, now let's take a look at the aspects and transits for this particular week, starting with July the 7th. Today, on July the 8th, Mercury trined the North Node. Okay, we discussed this in last week's weekly update. I discussed this also in the new moon video, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit now, because entering this week, anyway, I'm starting to expand on it. I'm pulling myself back, because let's just do what I said we would do first, which is do a run through of the aspects this week. Mercury trines the North Node today on July the 8th. On July the 10th, the Sun in Cancer trines Saturn in Pisces. On the 11th, Venus in Cancer trines Neptune in Pisces and then enters the sign of Leo. Mercury's already in Leo. On the 12th, Jupiter trines the South Node and Venus opposes Pluto. This is something that we absolutely need to talk about. And then, of course, on the 15th, the Sun in Cancer squares Chiron in Aries, and Mars conjuncts Uranus in Taurus. shall we just talk about where all the planets are? Let's start with the sign of Cancer. The Sun and Venus are in the sign of Cancer, and we are now in the month of Cancer, with the new moon inaugurating a 28-day month, with the word month derived from the word moon, from July the 5th to August the 4th. Mercury is in Leo, and Venus is going to join Mercury in Leo on July the 11th. The South Node is in Libra. Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, almost in Capricorn, pretty much at that first degree of Aquarius that it entered in late January and February of this year. And that's an important point that we will revisit. Saturn and Neptune both retrograde in Pisces. The North Node in Aries, Chiron in Aries, Mars and Uranus in Taurus getting ready to conjunct on the 15th. Gemini, currently, recently so active and a source of so much tension and blockage in some ways. Actually, no, we've got Jupiter in Gemini. What am I talking about? But with the personal planets and Jupiter trining the South Node, and Jupiter, as we head into August, will be squaring Saturn. Gemini is not Gemini. There's no such thing as a Gemini slowdown. And Mars, of course, is going to enter Gemini on the 20th of July, and then we're back to Cancer. So that's where all the planets are as we talk about this week. So Taurus season, currently active with Mars in Taurus. I'm not going to say that Gemini season is active. We've got Jupiter there making a transit, but Jupiter's a slow move. We've got Jupiter in Gemini till June the 8th of next year. Very much Cancer season still, and Leo season having recently begun on July the 2nd or 3rd, with Mercury entering Leo, Venus on the 12th, the Sun on the 23rd, I think, of July. And we're going to have a fairly extended Leo season by virtue of the fact that Mercury is going to be retrograde in Virgo and Leo. So we don't really get to, I think, let me see, when does Mercury clear Leo? Shall we look ahead and get a little distracted here? Why not? Mercury is going to clear Leo on September the 9th. So from, it's July, so it's going to be about a 2-month period. And then Mars is going to enter Leo in November, on November the 4th. And of course, Mars is going to be retrograde in Leo and Cancer. So there's a certain amount of sustained focus in the sign of Leo this year. But let's go back to whatever it is that we're talking about. Mercury in the sign of Leo trines the North Node in Aries, the planet of communication, transactions, cognition, agreements, verbalizing agreements, writing agreements. Let's just use the word, and commuting and transportation, particularly on a local basis, short-term, day-to-day commuting. The mail, email, technology, you get the planet of communication trines the North Node, the direction that we're meant to lean into, the direction that holds a certain amount of desire and magic for us. The direction that we may have felt called to move towards since April 19th of last year, 2023, beginning a kind of a journey of, this is the direction I want to move towards, that then takes us all the way to the end of the first week of June in 2025 that we find ourselves in the middle of. Part of the forward movement in July is related to this direction we're trying to move towards. And if we're moving towards a certain direction, there's also things that we need to release in the Aries part of the chart where the South Node is. Pursuing opportunity, preparing for readiness to move towards that opportunity. And of course, Jupiter this week trines the South Node in Aries. And we're going to come to that. But Mercury, first and foremost, trines the North Node. You could have, today is Monday, Mercury trined the North Node today. Over the past, let's say, 5 or 6 days, there could be something that reached you past week that has this sense of, it could be an opportunity, it could be something that comes to you through communication that has a forward looking, answering to this desire, this call that feels right, that has a sense of serendipity and magic around it. Remember with the North Node what I always say, it promises more than it delivers, almost out of design. It gets you excited about prospects so you can move towards it and develop the skills and the experience that you need to develop as a result of participating in moving towards this endeavor. Whether it actually ends up being a final destination, whether the destination or the project actually fulfills its full purpose, whatever it is, it's getting you to, and there's a need, there's both a sense of call and desire, and also a feeling that by moving in this direction, we not only experience adventure and a kind of serendipity, magic, but also we learn and we grow and we expand as a result of moving in this direction. But it does have a carrot at the end of the stick quality. It does have this kind of very strong pull to it. And always, as we're dealing with the North Node, you've got to keep your emotional and financial security in mind, because you could end up pursuing something, just kind of jumping off the cliff, so to speak, like the Fool card in the tarot, and while you get something, and very often we remain protected when we follow the North Node, but you don't. I think adventure and spontaneity and pursuing the things that we desire and we feel right to us, and where the opportunities are and where the doors are open, and that has a sense of yearning and call and pull, is wonderful. Recklessness and speed at the cost of appropriate meticulousness is not to be advised. And so just watch for that dynamic. Just watch for that dynamic. And if something has come to you through Mercury, is the first of the planets. Remember, the personal planets at the very least include Mercury, in the sequence that we are currently following, Venus, and then the Sun. Mars will come into Leo later this year in November, and it will trine the North Node. And I think it's going to trine the North Node 3 times, if I'm not mistaken, because it's going to be direct, retrograde, direct. So there's more to build on and follow. But Mercury coming in and first doing the trine indicates that something comes in through communication. Venus coming in into the trine by the end of July indicates to me that the conversation continues and moves. It could be an artistic or a creative or a Venusian project, fashion, beautification, luxury, design, even sometimes to do with, in Venus's case, nature, bounty, land, agriculture, but relationships and finances may start to become more concretely part of the discussion as the weeks go on. Again, there's a sense of opportunity around it. The Sun trining the North Node is going to bring a greater sense of sort of realism and reality towards what exactly is going on. The Sun is kind of this marvelous, but ruthlessly exposing internally, intuitively, to your truest self what is actually going on in a situation. And not just for you, for everybody involved. It's not unusual. And indeed, the month of August has this quality of, let us hit the pause button and let us see what is real. It is not unusual to get swept up, as I've said to you many times, as we are moving forward, in a certain amount of fantasy around whatever it is that we are pursuing. The example I like to give, that I give all the time archetypally, is you're interviewing for something, that 3 people on the interview panel, you've had 3 or 4 rounds of interviews, everything is going swimmingly, and then Mercury goes retrograde, and you realize that, they've always had an internal candidate, or this isn't a universal thing. This doesn't mean that if you are doing 3 interviews, all of them are going to have this issue. But it's helpful to know Mercury going retrograde, outside of the mayhem that causes on a logistical and technological, and a delay and a bag's lost and showing up to places at the wrong time, even if you've looked at the invite 3 times. Out of all that kind of mental mayhem that it causes, Mercury retrograde can do us a huge favor by revealing to us what is really going on. And rather than despairing about what is really going on, although sometimes that can be a valid response, or feeling towards what you have discovered, knowing what is real might allow you to determine how to navigate truer waters and how to actually understand what is going on and to see if it can potentially be turned into an opportunity as well. Or whether, as I've said before with Mercury retrograde, you just need to take your eggs and move them to a different basket. Take what you can from what you've been doing and understand that either has a strong foundation or the retrograde Mercury will tell you if it does not. With right now, the planets being direct and Mercury already in Leo and Venus getting ready to enter Leo and the Sun after that getting ready to enter Leo, it is time for forward movement. It is time to consider opportunities and readiness. So something may have come through communication-wise over the past week, I would say week 10 days, that and it may seem ripe with possibility. There could be communication around it. There could be developments around it. As you head towards Venus trining the North Node later in the month, things could concretize financially, relationship-wise, creatively. And then when the Sun comes in on the 23rd and we head into August, things become clearer around it. And then, of course, the Sun comes in on the 23rd. On August the 4th, we have the new moon in Leo and we inaugurate the month of Leo. And action continues to be taken, but August very much has a kind of a pregnant pause to it. Whatever it is that the new month in Leo begins and brings from a Leo perspective, and I'm talking about the house occupied by the sign of Leo in your chart. So these transits are going to be in conversation with, and are going to be occurring in, and are going to impact, and are going to bring in opportunities related to, and events and communications related to Mercury in the Leo part of your chart, the house occupied by Leo in your chart, and the North Node in the Aries part of the chart, the house occupied by Aries in your chart, which is the direction that you're being invited to move towards. Remember, till May the 25th, and some of this energy continues, the forward movement, the possibility in the chart was in the Aries part of the chart, where the North Node eclipses have been occurring since April the 19th of 2023, and the Jupiter part, and the Taurus part of the chart, where we had Jupiter from May of 23 to May 25th of 24, and where Jupiter conjuncted the North Node during its transit there, and conjuncted Uranus on April the 20th. And that conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus, for me, is the big astrological event of this year. And over the next 12, 13 months, we're going to see the changes related to that continue to spill out. Mars is currently in Taurus, getting ready to conjunct Uranus on the 15th of July. So it picks up on that conversation. What is the right individual direction for you in the Taurus part of your chart? And let's kind of move towards it. I'm going to come to that Mars-Uranus conjunction in a second. We're still talking about the very first thing related to this week, which is this Mercury North Node conjunction. So just know that there's a development. Try and retain a sense of meticulousness, but also recognize the opportunity or opportunities for what they are and move towards them. Right now, very much at a communication level, at a technology level, at a social media level, at a reading, learning, talking, chatter level. The concretization is going to take its own time, as it does. The Sun from Cancer trines Saturn in Pisces on July the 10th. We have been talking about how, as the planets move through the sign of Gemini till very, very recently, they were squaring Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. The Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in the chart, either there has been a desire since 2012 to move in an artistic or spiritual direction there, or there has been some form of continued gaslighting, deception, loss, theft, fogginess, lack of clarity, not being able to figure out what exactly is going on, even extending into a kind of paranoia, because if something doesn't seem right, then we view everything related to the events in that part of our life with that kind of doubt. Saturn's entry into Pisces, as a friendly reminder, since March of 2023, is trying to help stabilize this part of the chart, structure artistic spiritual plans, reveal what is actually going on and what is real, encourage you to process lessons, encouraging you to behave in a wise manner with an eye towards cause and effect. How do you strengthen your boundaries? How do you act to your fullest potential in the Pisces part of the chart so that you can either structure artistic and spiritual goals to their to reflect your fullest potential, or stabilize whatever has been going on that has been foggy, so that you can, by January, February of 2026, kind of put some of those issues to bed more peacefully and move forward. You know, the revelation of what is going on under Saturn's influence may have a glass half empty, glass half full, what is real, what is karmic, what feels karmic from previous lifetimes. It'll have that kind of feeling to it, for some of us, or what feels karmic even with regard to how situations have been developing in that part of the chart since 2012, reaching that crisis in 2016-17 I told you about, and how it can be kind of dealt with and resolved. Remember what I said in my new moon in Cancer video. The Pisces part of the chart is one of the parts of the chart that can threaten to derail our efforts and opportunities towards the Aries and Taurus part of the chart. So we've got to honor this stability and stabilizing, and we may have strongly felt the presence of Saturn and Neptune and Pisces and this energy rising up again when we had the personal planets going through the sign of Gemini, between May the 20th of this year and technically till July the 5th, when the new moon in Gemini month was still reigning, when the new moon in Cancer took over. And that new moon in Gemini squared Saturn. The new moon in Cancer trined Saturn. So we're in this phase where, as the personal planets are in conversation with the slower moving planets, they form tense aspects where they're blocked by the slower moving planets temporarily, and the slower moving planets demand their attention. Action needs to be taken by the faster moving planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, to help and contribute to the work and the transformation that the slower moving planet is doing wherever it is. We've had planets entering the sign of Taurus square Pluto. We've had planets entering Gemini square Saturn and Neptune. We've had planets coming into the sign of Cancer, which is where they are now, trining Saturn and Neptune. So that energy relaxes now a little bit. There's a harmonious flow. The actions that the Sun, in this case, is moving towards the trine with Saturn on July the 10th, in 2 days' time. It is not being blocked by Saturn. It is actually supporting Saturn. It is actually going to be able to, as we head over the next couple of days, we may, in a kind of a more peaceful internal way, get clear about whatever it is that we feel. This is a great week in a sense, because we have the Sun trining Saturn in 2 days' time and Venus trining Neptune the next day on the 11th. The next 2 or 3 days, if we want to move towards stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, taking some action, the Sun will expand our awareness with regard to what it is that Saturn needs. We'll know what needs to be done from the Cancer part of our chart, especially, and as part of this new moon in Cancer, to help Saturn stabilize, and it'll be less edgy and easier to kind of to make the actions flow, to create the to-do list, to do the solar observation of where am I at, where do I want to be, what needs to get done, what are going to be the wise choices. Very internal with the Sun. It bypasses Mercury, it bypasses the mind. It is just a knowing. And it is an even cleaner knowing. You know, intuition is so funny. Sometimes intuition, when it's lunar, is in the realm of feeling and fear and instinct. But with the Sun, it's really an intuitive knowing. It is infallible. It is clear. It is lit up. I need to do this, I need to do this, this is what's going on, this is the best way forward, let me do this, etc. Venus gets to trine Neptune from Cancer, Neptune and Pisces. Again, there's the opportunity. Venus is the most important planet this week because Venus trines Neptune, enters Leo, and immediately after entering Leo opposes Pluto. But we have the ability this week, as I said in my New Moon in Cancer video, to use relationship building, to use a sense of bridge building and harmony. And let's figure out how to smooth this over. Let's figure out how to make this work. Let's figure out how we can continue forward in a constructive way, kind of tone, to close what needs to be closed, to work with foggy energies that have been tricky and deceptive, to find some financial flow and agreement in some ways, relationship flow and agreement. The Sun trining Saturn will help give us a sense of how to focus and move forward to make that happen. And with Venus getting ready to oppose Pluto, with Mercury having opposed Pluto on July the 3rd, not that long ago, and creating the sense of unease, the opposition to Pluto, Venus opposes Pluto on the 12th. So once again, on the 10th, the Sun trines Saturn. On the 11th, Venus trines Neptune and enters Leo. And on the 12th, Venus opposes Pluto. Oppositions to Pluto are never comfortable. Pluto is trying to transform something in the Aquarius and also finish up its transformation in the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008 by the end of this year, by November of this year. But it's going to, the transformation of the Aquarius part of our chart goes on for the next 18 odd years. And January 20th to February 20th of this year. January 20th, let me remind you, the Sun and Pluto conjuncted in Capricorn a day or two before, and on the 20th, they both moved hand in hand into Aquarius. I say that because as we head towards the full moon, roughly 6 months from that date, on July 21st, that full moon, we're going to have a full Pluto. The Sun is going to be opposing Pluto. So the Sun, which conjuncted Pluto around January the 20th, now the Sun, because Pluto is still kind of hovering in that same area, it moved direct, but then it went retrograde, and it is in that 0 to 1 degree of Aquarius, where it entered Aquarius on January the 20th. And the Sun is going to come in, and when the Sun opposes something, it shines its light on that particular planet. We have a full Pluto. We may well be heading towards an awareness of what is being transformed, what is on the agenda. The middle of February, particularly that week in February, Mercury conjuncted Pluto on February the 5th, but Venus and Mars conjuncted Pluto. Mars first on the 14th of February, Venus on the 16th, 17th of February. Those were powerful indicators of what Pluto's agenda in the sign of Aquarius is. And it is a multiple, it's like, I'm going to first do this change, then we're going to do this change, and then we're going to do this change. What are the changes that you would like to have happen that you feel would be right for you in the Aquarius part of the chart? With Pluto, what may be surprising is that Pluto may be very, very clear about what the right path for you is and might be determined to remove. Pluto is like this, weeding tool that cannot be stopped. It's like it's attached to this tractor and it's going to pull and remove anything that is not right for you. As I said, the challenge with Pluto occurs if you are holding on to something that is trying to remove, then you will get bruised and hurt. Or if somebody else is resisting you being able to make that change, you are ready to leave, you are ready to transform, but somebody really wants to keep you in a particular place for their own agenda, not for your highest good. That's when these ideas of the resistance that Plutonian transits can inspire, or the power struggles that Plutonian transits can inspire, come into play. Now, Pluto entering the sign of Aquarius, Mercury, Mars, and Venus conjuncting Pluto in February, Mercury opposing Pluto on the 3rd of July, 2nd, 3rd of July, Venus opposing Pluto later this week on the 12th of July, and then the Sun getting ready to oppose Pluto on the 23rd of July, 2 days after that full moon, which is conjunct Pluto, are bringing these issues into focus. And again, with an opposition, it's very much about Pluto checking the opposing planet and it being a kind of a tug of war that Pluto will win as the stronger and slower moving planet. So here we really have to think about, what does Venus need to do from a Cancer part of your chart to support this Plutonian transformation? With Mercury opposing Pluto, we may have had a very strong instinct to send a communication, to be in communication, to be aware perhaps of some communication, that an uneasiness. Remember, the weekly overview I think I did last week, I titled it Uneasiness, really in honor of the Mercury opposing Pluto. This uneasiness that power struggles could be at play and transformations could be at play, and maybe some communication is needed or occurring, and it all depends on where Cancer sits in your chart. It's a very different feeling if the sign of Cancer is in your 1st house or 2nd house as opposed to your 8th house or 12th house or your 4th house. You know, if Cancer is in your 10th house of career and one of the most sort of open and public parts of the chart as opposed to the 4th house, a very yin, domestic, private part of the chart, it's a different feeling. And it's also this difference of who is doing the communicating. If Cancer is in the 1st house and if Leo is your 1st house and Mercury opposes Pluto from Leo, actually, I need to take back what I said. It's not from the Cancer part of the chart, it's from your Leo part of the chart. The opposition to Pluto, hear me on this. Pluto is on the very 1st degree of Aquarius, getting ready to move into the very last degree of Capricorn. We would all be forgiven for thinking that Pluto is in Capricorn as opposed to Aquarius, because it practically is. Every planet has an orb. The fact that a planet is in the very 1st degree of one sign also means that it is exercising its pull and its influence in the sign that it is entering. Right now, Pluto is going backwards. We feel the opposition building in the sign of Cancer. And when the planet moves into Leo, there's an opportunity to act. So the question is, what needs to be done from the Leo part of your chart to assist Pluto in this transformation? And with Venus, it could be that if you do decide to engage somewhere where there's a feeling of uneasiness, you use relationship building. You use Venusian. Diplomacy is a tricky word, because I don't know with Pluto. Venus, when she is not entirely effective, can err on the side of niceness that is trying to keep the peace, and therefore may have an element of fakeness to it. Venus likes harmony and peace. And so the shadow side of Venus, diplomacy, the velvet glove, is that not that she would acquiesce, although passivity can become part of that shadow side, but and it's fair. It can be something to watch for, but even insincere, not entirely truthful, because the truth, even if it is stated politely in certain situations, can feel uncomfortable and like whoever's speaking the truth is inviting conflict. So I would be careful of insincerity and fakeness. But I would certainly see, if in any situation, cordiality. Things like apologies, thank you notes, closing things, building things, but with a sense of grace, might prove to be effective tools this week. One could say, well, they're effective tools every week. No. Could be effective tools this week. It's still very early days with Pluto in Aquarius. It's looking back at 2008, and particularly 2008 to 2011, that you can see and make sense of what Pluto was trying to transform in the Capricorn part of your chart, and how that transformation has occurred step by step by step in an unavoidable way since 2008 till November of 2024. Similarly, it's going to be another 20 odd years before you look back to where we are today and go, oh, this is how Pluto announced its agenda in 23 and 24 and 25. And certainly the conjunctions to Pluto earlier this year in January and February, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, Venus in Aquarius. When I've been telling you that there's a direction symbolized by the Aries part of the chart that you may have been wanting to move in, been called to move in, been feeling like I need to lean in this direction to continue to develop, it's the next phase since April of 2023 that then was thwarted or stopped, and the focus needed to be on releasing something since September, October of 23 till March of 24. But with February breaking open the gates again, that February breaking open the gates, I'm referring to those Pluto. You cannot look at any transit, any aspect in a chart in isolation. You can't. Jupiter is going through the sign of Gemini, ending a 12-13 year cycle, starting a 12-13 year cycle. But as we head into August, it is going to square Saturn. And that is a very different experience than Jupiter having gone through the sign of Taurus between May of 23 to May of 24, conjuncting the North Node, conjuncting Uranus. It's not as if Jupiter isn't making trines. It's making a trine this week to the South Node. But you can't just be blanket about. So if we're looking at where the eclipses are taking us, paying attention to what it is that the conjunctions to Pluto could be creating as they enter the sign of Aquarius is not only wise, it's the story. It's a necessity. It's what you have to do in order to make sense of what's going on. So Venus, the planet of relationships and money. You feel the opposition to Pluto this week. There's a trine to Neptune just before she enters Leo and then opposes Pluto. And somewhere the conversation with what occurred between January 20th and February 20th continues and develops on this time, not so much on the realm of communication, although the opportunity to communicate in a relationship-oriented way, in a bridge-building way, is very present this week. You might be able to solve something, end something, potentially transform something by considering, especially if you feel like somehow, by considering communicating or meeting or asking someone for a cup of coffee in a kind of a we're all in this together way, and what is the most constructive way forward for all of us. But also with Venus's trine to Neptune and Venus's opposition to Pluto this week, when it comes to stabilizing the Saturn part of the chart and maybe dealing with, number one, concretizing artistic spiritual plans, if that resonates for you in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart. But if you've been dealing with energies that have been Neptunian or sketchy or foggy, you might be able to actually get somewhere through a kind of a relationship building communication and reach some sort of a, with Venus, it's very much a, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. There's a quid pro quo to it. There's a here, I'll offer you this. This is what I'd like in return. And we can do this harmoniously. On the 12th, Jupiter trines the South Node, the planet that is creating an ending and a new beginning, with the emphasis on ending a 12-13 cycle, starting a 12-13 cycle in the Gemini part of your chart. Trines creates a harmonious flow with the South Node in Aries, where something needs to be released. With Jupiter, as it approaches an aspect, you feel the aspect build, but you feel the consequences of that aspect for the next 12-13 years, because there's the emphasis on the ending, there's the new beginning that is being created. Jupiter has a kind of inaugural, auspicious inauguration, lucky break, in this case focusing on what needs to end and be released. And remember, the eclipses of release occurred October 14th of last year, solar eclipse in Libra. May 24th, 25th of this year, corresponding lunar eclipse in Libra. This year, we get solar eclipse in Libra on October the 2nd. We don't get a corresponding lunar eclipse in Libra. We do get, 2 months after the solar eclipse on December 2nd, some sort of resonance there. So something could be ending. And you're going to know this and you're going to feel this, but Jupiter doesn't have to. Yeah, I think it's going to be an unmistakable knowing in the Gemini part of your chart. Something ends that relates to an ending, knowing what it is that you need to release in the Libra part of the chart, the house occupied by Libra. And the ending and the creating of a new beginning will occur over the next 12-13 months, but I don't want to use the word lightning strike, but the inauguration of it will occur as we head towards Wednesday, Thursday, as we head towards the 12th. On the 15th, the Sun squares Chiron, all the planets going through the sign of Cancer. Mercury and Venus have already done, Mercury's already in Leo, Venus just has the trine with Neptune, but the planets transiting the sign of Cancer, as we've discussed before, square the nodes, trine Saturn, square the nodes in Aries and Libra, trine Saturn in Pisces, square Chiron in Aries, trine Neptune in Pisces, and then enter Leo. And the Sun is going to be getting ready to square Chiron on the 15th, a week from today. And I find that solar transits, especially about 5 days before them, we really start to feel it. With the Sun, as I've said, it is surprisingly yin energy. What are you going to be aware? And it's an awareness. It's an unmistakable awareness. And the new moon in Cancer on July the 5th trined Saturn and squared Chiron. So as the Sun gets ready to trine Saturn, on the 10th and square Chiron in the 15th, it's actually illuminating these two primary aspects that new moon in Cancer made. An awareness of something in the Cancer part of your chart, the house occupied by Cancer, that needs to be done, needs to occur. Attention needs to be paid to it. Some action may need to be taken. But with the Sun there, it's an awareness. You become clear about what needs to happen, what needs to occur, what you need to lean towards, what you need to embody in order to allow Chiron in Aries to continue to restore you to your original out-of-the-womb self in the Aries part of the chart. Remember that the April 8th solar eclipse, and we're in this solar eclipse cycle right now, April the 8th solar eclipse was conjunct Chiron to the minute. So some of the pursuing the Aries part of the chart and heading in that direction, that Mercury trined the North Node today, for example, brought into focus. And Venus is going to get ready to do that as we head towards the end of July. Ultimately, the Sun will do that in August, end of July, August. Mars will do that later this year, in terms of trining the North Node. There are 3 solar eclipses in Aries, April 19th of last year, April the 8th this year, March 29th of next year. But this year's solar eclipse on April the 8th is very focused on, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of processing, there's a lot of, with Chiron, understanding what and who has been running us since childhood, what wound has been running us, what are our triggers, what is getting in the way, how do I make this happen, how do I make this a success, learning, processing, healing. Very often with Chiron, you get to experience that again. You get to examine the wound. It's not a pain-free process. You don't get to heal anything without examining it, diagnosing it. You become present to the wound because you feel something. You may be very present to this week in a slightly uncomfortable way, because Chiron will kind of block the sun, will be like, Sun, you can't just go through the sign of Cancer thinking about the Cancer part of the chart, the house, and illuminating it without paying attention to me. How does this Cancer part of the chart, what needs to happen there? How does it affect your ability to heal the Aries part of the chart? And I would gloss over something like this, except that the new moon in Cancer, July, as I have said to you, is a very important, it holds a lot of potential. And then all of a sudden we hit August and it's like, okay, Mercury's like, let me actually tell you what's actually real and what's been going on. And then, of course, on the 15th, Mars conjuncts Uranus. With Mars, there's the ability to move towards and take action towards a goal or goals or a direction in the Taurus part of the chart that feels right to you in the conjunction with Uranus. I find Mars-Uranus aspects exciting. I find Uranus aspects exciting. They're trying to get you on a direction that may not be conventional and may not reflect the conventional way of doing things or conventional wisdom, but maybe your path. I'm a musician and I should make my demo tapes and I should do this and I should do this and I should do this. And then all of a sudden you do something that feels really right to you and you decide you're going to do this gig here somewhere and someone sees you there and it opens things up in a way that is your path far more effectively and serendipitously than following this conventional path, which may have its worth and its value. It's easy to give an artistic example because the artistic life is full of these kinds of possibilities and occurrences, not just possibilities. What is the right path for you? Mars conjuncting Uranus, especially so shortly after Jupiter conjuncted Uranus in the sign of Taurus. The last Jupiter-Uranus conjunction I told you was in late 2010, early 2011. We felt the consequences of that change, that seismic shift. I did a video on that seismic shift for the rest of 2011 into early 2012. Well, we get to experience another seismic shift now since April the 20th, heading towards April 20th of this year, and for the rest and the consequences of that unfolding during the rest of 24 and early 25. The more we align with that seismic shift, moving towards the Aries Taurus part of the chart, releasing something, moving towards the Libra, moving towards the Aries Taurus part of the chart, releasing something in the Libra part of the chart. Seriously, what's going on with Mercury? It's trining with the North Node. That's what's going on with Mercury. The sooner we align with that, the sooner it becomes clear to us what we need to release, what we need to clear up, what we need to do in July, and what we need to focus on with regard to honoring the opportunities that are in front of us. And Mars conjunct Uranus, the only thing you have to look at is it can also invite competition, and it can also invite conflict. It can invite, now again, it depends on where it's happening. If Mars is conjuncting Uranus in your 6th house or your 12th house, which means that Taurus would be in your 6th house, and that would make you a Sagittarius rising. Or Taurus would be in your 12th house, which would make you a Gemini rising, for example. Then it could be, with Mars, you have to be aware of wounds and woundedness and hitting something and accidents and incisions, and that could be a surgery, that could be a healing, it could have a kind of, it depends on where it's at. But it has a liberating quality, sudden events that liberate you. And there's something about today, I'm telling you, with Mercury trying the North Node, if I hear one more person say, what is it with today, July the 8th? Disruptive, but in an exciting way too, with full of potential. Something comes in and it's a kind of a lightning strike kind of thing, or something sudden develops. Something new enters the picture that has possibility. And that could be Mars conjuncting Uranus at work, saying, here's the opening. The only thing that you have to be conscious of with Mars is there something that also emerges to block it, or that might be part of the unease that we continue to deal with. Remember, lean on Venus this week as she gets ready to try Neptune, enter Leo, and oppose Pluto. But Mars conjunct Uranus, we've got to look at that. Remember that in Taurus season, we had the Sun, Mercury, Venus oppose Pluto, move through Taurus. And I think that it was the Sun and Mercury that conjuncted Jupiter and Uranus, or Uranus and Jupiter, depending on the sequence. Venus is only going to conjuncted Jupiter in Gemini. I may have the sequence of some of this wrong. I apologize. But irrespective, we had those planets go through and conjunct Uranus during quote-unquote Taurus season, between, let's say, April the 20th and May the 20th. And remember, April the 20th is when the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction actually happened. And with Mars conjuncting Uranus now, it's bringing the right opportunities, the right pursuit of goals. You may feel that action has to be taken in a certain direction, finally, to help secure that right path for you. Something could occur from outside that disrupts things. It could be an opportunity. It could be, it could feel like an attack in some ways. But there's something liberating about it, freeing you towards your individual path. And with Mars, I like to give it about 10 days before that happens, so starting about July the 5th. One more thing I need to tell you as we head towards July the 12th, which occurs this week. July 17th is 2 months before the September 17th lunar eclipse. So the week before July the 17th and the week after July the 17th may carry some resonance, some whispers, some glimmers, something even more than whispers and glimmers related to the lunar eclipse in Pisces on September the 17th of this year. That lunar eclipse is the first of the eclipses on the Pisces-Virgo axis over the next 2.5 years. The primary eclipses right now, the North Node in Aries, what we are trying to move towards, this narrative from last April or even March of 2023 to the end of the first week of June of 2025. This year in 2024, 3 of the 4 eclipses are on the Aries-Libra axis, but this lunar eclipse comes up in the sign of Pisces, where we've got Saturn, where we've got Neptune, where we currently this week have the Sun trining Saturn and Venus trining Neptune, both from the sign of Cancer. And then as we start to head past July the 12th, and we accelerate towards July the 17th and the week after that, really it kind of times a certain amount with the full moon, with the second full moon in Capricorn on the 21st. Something may peak around that carries that resonance. But with the eclipse, for some reason, it's 2 months before, the week before, week after, may carry. Now, this could be that Sun trining Saturn on the 10th gives you an awareness. If you were unconscious of all this and didn't know all this, it could be that you were automatically creating an agenda. Remember with the Sun, I said it kind of takes stock at what needs to be done to help Saturn. What can I do from Cancer, the sign of Cancer, where I am right now? In general, what can be done to support Saturn in Pisces, to structure spiritual, creative goals in the Pisces part of the chart, to stop the energy leak caused due to deceptive, foggy, unclear, gaslighty energies in the Pisces part of the chart. It could very well be that if you were not aware of what I just shared, the importance of 2 months before a lunar eclipse, week after, it carries a resonance. And with the Sun trining Saturn and Venus trining Neptune, if you were not aware of this, even those aspects would help you get clear on what needs to be done. You may be able to make some progress that then ultimately reaches some sort of culmination. Something starts. You start the process of leaning into the Pisces part of your chart, the house occupied by Pisces. And with the combination of the North Node eclipses there, and Saturn being present there till February of 2026, it will give you a lot of what you need to kind of stabilize and stop the energy leak in the Pisces part of the chart. We've been waiting for these transits and eclipses since 2012, but especially since 2014, 15, 16, 17, to just be like, enough already. We've all got a life to live. Either I'm going to get serious about what I want to create here spiritually, artistically, or we're going to figure out how much of my energy you're going to take by being unclear or deceptive about things. And now with Saturn and the North Node there, you get to have a little more agency, or a lot more agency, about what you will actually permit or not as well. But with Saturn there are also strong lessons and a need to really embody a sense of personal discipline about how you conduct yourself with an eye to what you do and what effect it has. Even if you remember with Saturn, it's more important to be effective than to be right. Or more accurately said, you can be right and effective, or you can be right and ineffective. If you're right about something, but you end up carrying something out in such a way that antagonizes people and makes them feel greater animosity towards you, that's not effective. And Saturn will make cause and effect clear. Saturn is more interested in having you make the right, the wise, the mature, the consequence-oriented. Saturn wants you to take actions to win. But even Saturn would probably say, you're really trying to just meet your fullest potential and trying to create the best possible outcome. And winning is rarely our strategy for a best possible outcome. Any victory that is declared, particularly if it is declared over another human being, only creates a chain reaction of conflict. Because what you're really doing is creating victory or declaring victory over someone who has that divine spirit in them. I mean, you can think back to the end of the First World War and the Treaty of Versailles and how it sowed the seeds for the Second World War. You can think, look at what we're dealing with in 2024 and tell me that we're still not dealing with the Cold War and the way that it's affecting our election this year. Every victory, as I like to say, is a hollow victory. because you're just declaring it on one of us, or I'm declaring it on one of us, or you're declaring it on one of us, or whatever that. It's not the right paradigm. Now, certain amount of healthy competition, certain competitiveness for resources, there are ways to conduct ourselves. There are ways to play. But a sense of othering and smothering is not going to get us there. Now, Venus can help us with this week. Mars conjuncting Uranus might bring up some interesting energies around it. But with the North Node eclipses, the first of those eclipses in Pisces making its presence felt, it also gives us the opportunity to think about and maybe even take some action around taking responsibility for managing things in the Pisces part of the chart. What does leaning into that part of the chart look like and mean to us? And getting ready to release something in the Virgo part of the chart, which will become more active as we head towards January to March. The solar eclipse, the next solar eclipse this year on October the 2nd is going to be in Libra, but the corresponding lunar eclipse is going to be in Virgo. As we head towards that date, I'm going to do a separate video just kind of looking ahead at the Virgo Pisces eclipses. Where are the solar eclipses? Where are the lunar eclipses? What are the dates? What is the overall arching timeline? What does it look like? And we'll pay attention to it and we'll take a look at it. Again, it's a very different set of eclipses that conjunct Chiron in Aries, that were conjuncting Uranus in Taurus before the eclipses in Aries, that are going to conjunct Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And yes, it's fair to assume that the eclipses in Pisces will have greater gravity, require greater seriousness, and will arguably have a less of a sense of expansiveness, but they are desperately needed to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. So that's something else to start to get aware of. The other thing to get aware of, and that's not for this week, but I think for next week, is that as we head towards, we were looking at towards July the 15th, but I think July the 16th or 17th, Mercury enters its shadow degrees for the next retrograde. And I'll do a separate video on that as well. I hope you found this useful, my dears. It is, look, we've got Mercury trying the North Node today. So something may be communicated that has that kind of forward-moving, adventurous, positive, opportunity-laden kind of energy, which is nice. The Sun trining Saturn in 2 days. Venus trining Neptune on the 11th. Jupiter trining the South Node on the 12th. Mars conjuncting Uranus on the 15th. Those are all exciting. Overwhelmingly, it's kind of a flowing, exciting. You want a productive week? There are a lot of elements here that have that productiveness. The two things to watch out for are Venus opposing Pluto on July the 12th. And the Sun squaring Chiron on the 15th. This week, you may carry a sense of what it means to heal something really significant and important, to come back to a clearer, more empowered. Empowerment continues to be a theme. With Venus opposing Pluto, with these trines occurring, that is the word for this week. Getting to an empowered place, peaceful, empowered relationship building to the best of your ability and acting from there. Venus opposing Pluto, something financial. So you starting to continue to develop in very early stages what Pluto's agenda is to transform something in the Aquarius part of the chart. It may have resonances, but it's an opportunity as well with the trine to Neptune and the opposition to Pluto. It's an opportunity to have a window of healing. Venus leads this week, at least in terms of the general. Now, you would need to look at your personal chart and see, if you have a lot of important, if it's the Sun, or if it's Mercury, or if it's Saturn where they're at making a lot of aspects to planets in your natal chart, then that's going to make things more personal to you. But in general, the theme for smoothing things over, not fakely, but with an eye towards cooperation and quid pro quo and I'll do this for you, you do this for me. Let's keep moving forward. Let's have an air of functionality, functionability. Let's keep that going because we need to, and life will be easier that way, is a bit of the theme of this week. And somewhere internally, you're going to be carrying this sense of, how do I continue to come back to myself in an empowered way in the Aries part of the chart that also honors the fact that I'm trying to move towards the Aries part of the chart, because that's where the North Node eclipses is still active till the end of the first week of June of next year. If you would like me to take a look at your personal birth chart and the transits occurring right now, give you a reading, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart, my email address is in the description box below. You can email me there and I will send you information about rates and offerings. There are people to whom I owe their birth charts. Just know that I have not forgotten about you. It has been a crazy few days and I will get those to you. Feel free to comment, like the video. It does help circulation, and I read as many comments as I can, pretty much all the comments that make their way in front of me. I still feel like there's some comments that get hidden or get pushed aside, and I'm not quite entirely sure about what's going on there. I certainly have, I think maybe I'll be able to count on one hand or a few fingers if I ever kind of reported a blocked a comment that just felt like outrageously whatever, but I tend not to do that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already, and next to the subscribe button is a bell icon. If you hover over it, on top of that there's a wiggly bell. Click on it and you'll be notified whenever I do new videos. What else do I want to say? If you found the video useful, tell people about the channel, etc. And if you're watching on social media, Facebook and Twitter, know that I'm going to stop posting on those platforms by the end of this month. All right. Thank you very much. I wish you a very happy and productive and forward-moving July. Let's get on it and transform our realities to the best of our ability. How is that for a nice cheesy way to end this? But I mean it. Oh, I'm so mortified that I just used that very cheesy analogy, but it's where we are at. All right, before I become more ridiculous, over and out.